Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Tech.Strong.Women, where we feature amazing women doing amazing things in tech. I'm Jodi Ashley, executive producer here at Tech.Strong, here with my co-host, Tracy Ragan, creator and CEO of Deploy Hub. And in her spare time, she does a lot of work with the Linux Foundation. Before I introduce today's guest, I'm going to give you a quick update about what's happening here at Tech.Strong. We recently launched our newest website, platformengineering.com. Be sure to go check it out. I'm launching a series to go along with it on Tech.Strong TV with webinars and biweekly episodes. So you definitely want to tune into that. We're getting that rolling in the next 2 or 3 weeks. So it should be ready for you after you see this episode. We have virtual events coming up. We're going to be at KubeCon in London come April. So if you're around, be sure and check in and say hi. And if you're interested in doing an interview, reach out to Tech.Strong and we can hook you up with that. You can register for all of our events by going to Tech.Strong.Events.com and be sure to tune in every day to Tech.Strong.TV for all of our great shows and interviews. All right, Tracy, what's on your mind today?
Well, I think I would be mistaken not to say that DeepSeek is on my mind. And in particular, if it's true what they're saying about DeepSeek, and they have a different way of building these models, and a couple of university students with $6 million was able to do it. We won't talk about the funding that went behind them, and if they shorted NVIDIA, that's an interesting topic. But I think the lesson learned here is we're always disrupted, right? We're constantly being disrupted. And in this case, if what they're saying is true, it proves that our current VC model and our funding model for companies is not working in the US. SoftBank just announced they're in talks with OpenAI to do a $40 billion round for OpenAI, which means that there's a lot of money not going to other smaller companies that might be able to disrupt OpenAI. Now, I understand that they're in there to make money and they're trying to build up the biggest company that they possibly can, but funding is a limited resource. It's not infinite, right? There's not just this infinite amount of money that's coming through the channels that people can get. When 40 billion goes into one company, it's at the risk of maybe losing out on a company that's small, that may have a great idea and that may be able to build something better and not always, spend a whole lot of money doing it. I mean, $40 billion is a huge chunk of cash. So I have to use the term, the democratization of VCs, right? If we're not looking and if we're not really doing the research that we need to do, and we're just saying we want to put as much money behind the guy that we think is going to make it work, I think we're missing out. So that's my thought today, and it makes me sad.
Yeah, it's been a big topic, I think. I think it's been brought up on every episode of Tech.Strong Gang this week. So it's definitely a big deal. Sorry. Well, I am excited to introduce our guest today, Carolyn Nash. Carolyn, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey, ladies. Thank you so much for having me today. So my name is Carolyn Nash. I am the Chief Operating Officer at Red Hat. And I know you two are big fans of the open source world. And so, excited to be here and part of Red Hat, which is really founded on open source principles. We develop and we support open source software that fuels, I think it is 90% of Fortune 500 companies. So at any rate, it's a pleasure.
Just a little bit of it out there, right?
So, Carolyn, I really want to first start this question off. What are your thoughts about the potential of DeepSeek? And is it really going to disrupt what we thought we had a future in building these massive AI data centers? From a personal point of view, not from a Red Hat point of view, where do you think this is going? Is this just really going to disrupt how we see AI and demystify it?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I mean, I gotta be honest, I feel like every couple of weeks there's something that is like, we didn't see that coming. I mean, right? Like, AI is changing at the speed of light. And what we knew a month ago is different from what we knew 6 months ago, is different from what we knew a year ago. So Lord knows where this is going to take us. But it is disruptive. I think there's no question about it. But I think it's more of a question of what do we, companies in the United States, other companies do about it? And does that fuel a new, I mean, I loved your point about VCs, right? Like, does that fuel a new, like, don't rest on our laurels with AI. We have to continue to innovate and continue to think about how we can do this, and we can do this energy efficient. We can do this cheaper. We can do this faster. And but it will disrupt. But I believe, and I'm going to take the optimistic stance on this, that our companies are going to react and come out even stronger in the end.
Well, let's hope that is the case. And now let's talk about it from an OpenShift perspective. How is OpenShift adapting to these AI models, and what are you seeing from your customers in terms of what they're asking for?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, I'm going to speak in terms of OpenShift's number one customer, and that's me. So, as I think about Red Hat technology, I mean, I run operations, so that's including IT, and we run with every single Red Hat product and many of the IBM products, for reference point. But as I look at it, and I look at OpenShift AI, we're in a position where we're using it. We're no different than any other company as we're looking to do things faster, cheaper, safely. And so with OpenShift and OpenShift AI, we're building models, and we're using them to change the way we run our business internally and how we support our customers as well. And we're not only using LLMs, of course, but we're taking on something that's looking at smaller LLMs. And so basically we're taking them and creating a number of smaller LLMs that are really fit for purpose for what we're trying to use internally. And that is all powered on OpenShift. And the benefit of that is it really does address things in a faster, cheaper way. You have to use less energy, you have to use less power, less GPUs in order to tap into these smaller models. And that's exactly what we're talking about with our customers. Because again, we're sort of our customer number zero. We call it our Red Hat on Red Hat.
And from a security perspective on LLMs, I always felt that having those smaller models and having models that have domain expertise, and if you could build a multimodal LLM system where those are passing information to them, it's almost a way to encapsulate it and protect it better, right? It's easier to do security around a small LLM than a 40 billion parameter LLM. I don't know what they're up to now, but
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
huge.
Yeah. That's exactly it. And you think about let's talk about internal support for any given company. If you have something that's going in and you need whatever, I'm an employee and I'm trying to get some HR information on myself, right? If you think about safety and security and personal information, you want to make sure you have a small large language model that's really focused more on those, HR type of topics, as opposed to, and gets routed to the Ask HR support desk, rather than being routed over to help me understand this customer contract and the terms and conditions on this one. And so it not only makes it work more efficiently, but it protects our data better. And with the regulations and so much that we have to protect, it absolutely is a safety mechanism for us.
Kind of interesting that at the same time that we're talking about building Kubernetes decoupled architectures and getting away from the monolith, in AI, it's all monolithic. Oops. Are we, sometimes I think that we don't listen to ourselves and what we're saying. So I think that model will be more interesting for enterprises to have small LLMs.
Yeah.
But then we have a lot of agents. aren't we like, I do not like the idea of agents because I think it complicates the stack quite a bit. And I understand that maybe we can't do it any other way. But there are other agents in the stack that we may not need. And I feel like there's quite a bit being thrown into production, even to do security scanning, opening up a container in production to see what open source packages were used. Maybe some of that we can start scaling back on and pulling from from where it was created at the DevOps pipeline and start building more intelligence into that and have a DevOps LLM. Why not?
Right? I love it. I love that concept. Yeah. We do have to scale back too, because you think of it, it's you can build and build and build and build, but if we're not using everything we're building as well, I mean, we got to do a little bit of cleaning, like cleaning out your garage, right? Like every now and then you got to go in and you got to pull everything out, figure out what you're not using, what you don't need anymore, and then put it back into the garage all organized and available for greater use.
And you know what? It takes companies so long to do that, and they fight it, and they struggle with doing it. It's like, talk about hoarding mentality.
Yeah, and it throws, it creates just this great discussion around governance as well. And because everybody is excited, everybody wants to try these things, everybody wants to do these things, but the more you create, the more how are we making sure that as we're building and creating, that the experiments that don't work and that we don't want to continue with are actually getting edited back and removed. And it's just, it's almost a way, it's governance, portfolio management, whatever you want to call it, but making sure that we're doing that in the right way.
Yeah, I don't think we figured that out yet, especially around security and at all. We have SAST, we have DAS, but we still have vulnerabilities that make it to production, and we're not remediating them very fast. The whole idea of chaos engineering and being able to respond to this, to respond to a problem or vulnerabilities, I think it has been underserved and needs to get more attention, because it's not really about, root cause analysis all the time. And especially as we start doing more AI work and we haven't figured out how to secure that, we just got to get really fast at fixing things.
You can't prevent vulnerabilities, but you sure can react to them very quickly and respond to them quickly and safely before damage is done.
Yeah,
So
I don't think we could.
As I talk to our customers, I'm in the Boston office where our executive briefing center is, and I'm talking to various customers. Security is one of those top things. I mean, cost and efficiency and all of that has always been a topic, but security is more often than not something that really has to. They want to discuss, and they want to find out what options they have.
Well, and what I think is interesting is just in the last few years, there was a lot of push and pull. We do a lot of security stuff here, and I would hear these conversations that people would literally argue about, but we should be able to prevent everything. And then everyone else was like, no, we can't prevent everything. We've got to be prepared, and we've got to be agile and be able to work through it quickly. And I've seen that we can prepare for everything just kind of disappear pretty quickly, especially as the AI is kicked in, because that's a tool that helps you respond really quickly, right? Faster than ever before. But that argument is definitely kind of moved away.
Yeah, no,
it's just not possible. It's not possible.
It's not. You can't. You just have to be prepared to react. Is what it is, and
And I feel like there's a culture of complacency. So, for example, DeepSeek gets released, and then Wiz goes and says, "Hey, we can see that a ton of data has been exposed." But does anybody care anymore? Do people really care? There was even an article I read. I think it was maybe it had been the Navy or the Army that basically said, "Yeah, we know we should be watching for vulnerabilities, but if we need to get something out, we need to get it out." And I'll take the risk even if I don't understand what that risk is. But it's a statement to say we're not serving the community in terms of security. We haven't figured it out yet. And the worst part of all of this, in my opinion, is we need investment to get it done. But when you have $40 billion going to OpenAI, there's not going to be a lot of investment in security or cybersecurity in any way because we've become complacent.
Yeah, it's so true. And I really appreciate your point about taking risks, because I think this is the balancing, that everybody's trying to do is, how do you innovate at a crazy fast pace, but do it safely and take some risks, but take the right amount of risks in an area that is completely, new to so many. And I think, again, internally, even things we've created a policy like every company has, right? Everybody has their AI policy, but it's like version, I don't know what, 5 or 6 right now, because we have to keep changing it. Like, oh no, we over rotated and now we're saying no to everybody. Well, no, that's not the right approach, right? And so then you're trying to tweak it, but you really don't know. But you also have to take risks, and but just knowing where to place that risk pendulum is really the important point there.
I think it's interesting, though, how quickly companies, nations have responded to DeepSeek. Like, we've let all this AI come and everyone's like, should we be worried? Should we not? Months and months go by. I mean, this week, Italy banned it. Ireland banned it. Congress banned it. Everybody from the government from downloading it. I think I'm just interested. You wonder now if we flew to the other end of the extreme, but I'd rather see the other end of the extreme, like Tracy was talking about, all this vulnerabilities that people immediately noticed. I just thought it was interesting. Every couple hours, I'm hearing another company or another country that says we're banning it for now. We'll see how long that lasts, but I just think the response has been. I know, but I think the response has been really quick. Really quick.
Yeah. Well, it's culture right now, and not following rules, not following policy.
Oh, yeah.
Taking big risk is where we are in our culture. So that's where we find ourselves. However, talking about taking big risk, I was looking through your resume and you've made some big jumps in your career.
I sure have.
How did you do that? Talk to us a little bit about, your background, how you, climbed the ladder to become the COO of Red Hat. That's an impressive job. And it's great to see a woman in that role, right? Because it's taken a long time for us to get women in C-level positions.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you for that. Sure. So, it's, I started my career quite a while ago, but I actually started out in public accounting. So I was an accounting major in college. Scratch that. I was an engineering major for a bioreactor. And this no, I can't. No. Accounting is way more up my alley. But at any rate, I spent a good bit of time in public accounting, which I absolutely loved. And I think it became a great foundation for my career. Because, public accounting, it sounds really boring. But the reality is, like, what you do when you're in audit is you have to understand how data flows through processes, flows through systems to ultimately end up as a financial statement. So it actually is an incredible foundation for how you learn about how companies make money and build assets. But at any rate, I went into finance, and after I left public accounting, and I was living in Silicon Valley at the time, and so thought, tech has got to be the place I go. I wouldn't go anywhere else if I'm living in Silicon Valley. And so got into finance there. And how I actually pivoted out of finance was when I was starting a family. And I have twins. They're now adult, but at the time, I really wanted to continue working, but I needed some more flexibility. So I went part-time. And I talked to my boss about it, and he agreed that, the finance and accounting doesn't really offer you that much flexibility. At least it didn't at the time in the role I was in. So he flipped me into more of an operational role, more projects, things like that. That gave me a ton of flexibility, allowed me to raise my children, and but also gave me this great experience and exposure to the intersection between finance, between IT, between the business. And I really just loved playing in that space, kind of building on all of that old public accounting days, but building in that space. And really from there, it just opened up my eyes to so many more possibilities beyond the track I was originally on. I got into data and analytics. I got into sales operations, and played it.
That's where I saw the risk. I mean, you went from HP. I think you went from
HP,
KPMG
yeah, it's KPMG to HP to Cisco.
to Cisco in sales operations.
Yeah, I started
It's very different than public accounting. Okay, very different. It seems. Maybe I'm wrong.
absolutely.
Still got the dollar signs though.
Yeah. No, it would. My time at Cisco was a wild ride. I mean, Cisco is a great environment to really. They allow you. They encourage you to bounce around and try new things and continue to push yourself out of your comfort zone. I actually had a fantastic boss at Cisco. And his point was always, Carolyn, when you start to get comfortable in a role, like if you start to come into that little circle of comfort, it's time for you to go look for something new, go take on a new project, just ask for more scope, get something. Never get in your comfort zone and never be complacent about your growth journey. Always be learning and growing and being just at a minimum mildly uncomfortable. And so it was really at Cisco where I took a tremendous amount of risk in leaving finance. Yeah, sales operations, data and analytics, business services, and that I think gave me the confidence when I came. I took that gave me the confidence to leave Cisco after 16 years and go to Red Hat. And I thought this is going to be a new type of company, something that I was really passionate about. I mean, because Red Hat's such a cool company, built upon the whole open source communities and development model. It's also an open source culture. For me, it's just been a blast. And it's also a company that really encourages you, just helps you open up those opportunities. And that's where I actually bounced back into finance, believe it or not, and grew my career in finance back up and to become CFO. And then at that point, there was some leadership turnover, and my boss at the time had asked me to take on IT and security and a whole other things. I'm like, sure, right? Again, you don't want to get comfortable. And I can't say since I've been at Red Hat, I've ever been in my comfort zone. It's been always right on that outside of comfort, which is how I know I'm at a great place. So, my role as COO, I paused at first, right? As many of these things, like you got the little, who doesn't have the imposter syndrome, the little person sitting on your shoulder talking in your ear, like, no, Carolyn, you're not technical enough for IT. Well, you know what? I don't need to be technical enough for IT. I need to be a great leader who can build super smart people around me who are willing to explain things to me, teach me, allow me to ask the right questions and dig into an appropriate amount of detail to make sure that I am driving the business forward in an aggressive and also safe way. So,
okay, you need to do a TED Talk and you need to write a book, honey. Man, no, you're inspiring to me because it's just amazing, like your energy and just the way your brain works. It sounds like you've had some really great mentorship and bosses along the way that have really supported, like, gosh, we don't hear they supported me through raising twins story a lot.
No, we don't.
I could go into a lot more, but I've had some exceptional mentors, sponsors, bosses, and not only had they got me through my early years with my twins, and but in addition, my current boss is amazing. He helped get me through the loss of my husband. My husband passed away 2 years in the midst of a lot of leadership changes here, and just really, I'm still here and I'm still charging forward, and it got me through one of the most difficult time in my life. And allowed me the space to do what I needed to do, and but also welcomed me back and brought me back up. So I am really grateful for my leadership and my people, my tribe, my personal board of directors who I feel like have surrounded me, and that's it's really I'm like, oh, I'm getting emotional.
What a blessing.
Really, like, to have great people around you that's why I have my energy, because I have great people around me. And
Carolyn, I'm so sorry to hear you went through that.
Absolutely.
Thank God you have the entourage around you to help you. We all need that. We really do.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And 35 years, and most of that in tech, being a female is also, quite a journey as well. And again, I feel myself lucky that I've had, amazing female sponsors around me, amazing male sponsors around me, people who, who have just pushed me and flicked that little imposter off my shoulder. And I also think I've been, I'll pat myself on the back to say that I think I choose my companies and my bosses very wisely. And my choices along the way, and most recently being at Red Hat, has been, one of the best career decisions I've made.
I love the open source community. I'm sure it is an amazing place to be. A company a company built on open source like Red Hat. I'm a big open source fan. That's why in my intro, it's always Tracy does a lot with the Linux Foundation. But boy, open source has taken a beating recently. We're getting blamed for a lot of security issues, which probably is correct. But we've known this for quite some time, right? And maybe it's open source that's going to get us out of this problem. But I feel like there's a lot of stuff being written and we're not doing much with it. Adoption of these security tools and for open source will be a challenge. Do you guys talk to your community about security? How do you navigate that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very important thing. But the thing with Red Hat is, when you think about the open source, and we we live and breathe in the open source, but it actually creates. I mean, our whole open source development model is taking these projects in the community, but bringing them and hardening them into enterprise supported products. And that's part of the beauty of it. I mean, when there have been some of the bigger, larger vulnerabilities out, Red Hat's been one of the first ones, and the Red Hat community has been the first ones to raise their hand and say, we've identified it and we figured it out. Because I think that is the power of open source, is you are not only in an enterprise-grade hardened product, but you have access to the community that is using it along the way. So, I mean, I think it's a benefit. I mean, I for sure have been living and breathing it, and I also, going back to the culture piece of it, I believe, you can talk even more generically about security, and you can talk about security in the enterprise from a non-technical standpoint. And I believe the open source culture really starts to weed out these things as well. When you are taking ideas and inputs from all different places, you're also getting people to raise their hand to say, I have a concern. And like at Red Hat, even internally, we have company-wide mailing lists where people frequently debate and discuss different topics, controversial topics, but things that bubble up that, like, we as a leadership team, we're always monitoring it, because some of the really, like, ooh, okay, that's an interesting idea, or that's a really valid concern, or we might need to dig into that a little bit more. That's open source too.
And that's kind of the same, you talked about in your personal journey, being able to take a risk and staying outside of a comfort zone, or just staying a slightly outside of that comfort zone circle. Companies are doing that with open source, right? They may have, it may be pushing them a little bit, but I'm hoping where it pushes them, they can't get away with writing software without open source. That cat's out of the bag. It's not going to happen. It would take a lot of coding. It would take a lot of work, and they wouldn't be able to keep up on what's new in AI without it. So how do we, as an open source community, make them feel okay about continuing to step out of that circle of comfort, saying, okay, I'm only going to use these particular packages. I'm not going to try to use any more. I know these are secured. How do we do that? How do we bring open source back into conversation that people don't say, oh, there's a security issue with it? From a broad community perspective. I know it's a big question, but
yeah, I know. And I immediately go into, just buy Red Hat. Come on. I was like, no, I know you're trying to go broad on me. But I think that is understanding what is it that you're using it for, and are you accepting a level of risk in the open source in the open source community that you're comfortable with. What is, a small startup company is different from a governmental agency or a banking. I mean, I think it depends on where you are in the continuum. But if you're one of these larger companies that's trying to stay and keep yourself more secure than maybe your mom and pa's need to be, that is where you need to still embrace the open source, but make sure it is enterprise-wide grade open source, and that it's hardened and has the security that you need necessary to make your regulators comfortable, to make the various agencies comfortable. But open source is, we've proven that it is secure.
Absolutely. And I think more and more some of the tooling that is being developed, open source tooling, by the way, that's being developed will help solve this problem. And I'm hoping that we start embracing more and more through the DevOps, pipeline, adding more tooling and consuming the data and getting smart about it, because I love open source and I would hate to see it go away, even though I don't think it's going away any more than the mainframe ever went away. And there's legacy open source out there, and there's new being written every single day, and we have to be outside of our comfort zone and consume it, because it's the only way we're going to really build innovation in this country is to accept it.
Mm-hmm. Right. It's just, it's tied right there with AI. I mean, open source AI is an incredibly powerful tool. It is incredibly powerful. That's just going to unlock a ton of innovation. I think unlike anything that we have seen before. What do they say? This is going to unlock more than the invention of electricity. It really will. But I believe that AI powered through open source is just going to be exponential.
I would agree. And it's way beyond our comfort zone right now.
Totally.
It is so beyond it, but we have to go there, right? We really do have to go there.
Yeah. And we have to, go beyond what's going to happen in 6 months. You don't. You just have to keep pushing the boundaries and doing what's let's say what you're comfortable with, not what you're not comfortable with, but you no longer can do a year-long roadmap. A roadmap doesn't make any sense here. It's got to be just fast innovation, iteration, and learning. And again, I don't want to lose sight of the governance component of this, because it is it's something left unchecked could be quite scary.
So I know we're gonna run out of time.
Oh, we're good. We're good.
So tell us what's new. What's new and what's happening at Red Hat that we might want to know about, or that you can share with us? Is there, what's exciting?
Please don't tell anyone.
Yeah, we won't tell anybody. We want to know what's exciting at Red Hat that the team is super, super jazzed about.
Oh, my goodness. Well, we were just, I'll tell you, we've been talking about it. I think the thing that is coming out of our mouths in every single meeting, in every single investment decision, and every single, just interaction we have is around AI. And it is, how do we, bring our customers to the next level? And again, I'm looking at how do we bring ourselves to the next level? But doing so in a way that other companies just haven't thought of. We had just had something really cool a couple of months ago. We were looking at some of our models and some of our LLMs, and we actually had somebody from our team go and load up inclusive language standards into our LLMs, right? And so you think about things like that, how just all of a sudden now, something that we were a little bit nervous with about AI, now you load up into those standards, this is inclusive language, and all of a sudden it just changes the game a little bit. The other thing that I think is really cool is just skills development, and I think a lot about people and where are we going to go? And we talked about, we don't even know what's going to happen in 2 months, right? 6 months, a year. Well, we have to assume that every single role we have will not look the same in 2 years, in 3 years. So a lot of people talk about, well, does that mean these jobs can go away? Well, what we believe is we really have to reskill for these shifts that are going to happen. And so we've been creating a good bit of training curriculum and looking at, okay, what are the roles and the skills that we have today? What are the roles and the skills that we anticipate that we're going to need? And let's take that, create curriculum, create experiences, projects, innovation days to help people move along that continuum so that they will be ready when we get there, not if we get there. And I just think that's been really cool, something we're really excited about here. So that's
Does
just
Red Hat work with universities?
very much so. Yeah, it's yeah, we have some local partnerships, and so we work very closely with them. And I mean, our belief is you got to go get the great university talent. They're getting, not only are we importing talent from the universities, but we're partnering on a lot of projects with them while they're in university, and investing in that because, again, that's where the innovation is coming from.
It seems like the university system can be really slow to put together curriculums and get new classes offered.
Yeah.
I think that's my biggest frustration with some of the students that are coming out of university is that they're somewhat prepared, but they're not prepared for tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, we do, we have various internship programs where we bring them in, we give them projects, but we give them loose projects because what we're seeing out of these, university minds is that they can approach a problem in a very different way than historically we probably would have thought. So we do believe in the practical experience, but, we've also been investing into those to make sure that it's not necessarily just a traditional classroom experience for this type of innovation.
Yeah, I think we learned that with Seek versus OpenAI, right? There was a couple of universities, the students had thought about it differently with the less money and they were just motivated.
Yeah, and we're also trying to get, we are partnering with some of the local high schools and middle schools and trying to, just ensure that we are getting the word out on the importance of STEM to the younger folks. So we often host like middle schoolers coming in here and, we'll do a little pitch on what is Red Hat. But what we will talk about a lot is just what STEM roles look like in a high-tech company. And even if maybe you're not, maybe you're not an engineer, well, still there is a career path for you in STEM. And we show them what that could look like at a Red Hat. And so we break out into smaller groups. What does a product manager look like? What does an engineer? What does a software developer look like? So that we're trying to also spark that excitement. We give them projects to do, that excitement, that sense of innovation at the very early age. And, in addition to just getting middle schoolers there, we focus on underserved communities. We certainly want to make sure that we're getting our young girls really excited about this and that we don't.
I was going to say reaching out in middle school, that really does help young girls.
Yeah.
Maybe redefine who they are and how they could participate in a world where they believe it's dominated by men, which it is. We're not going to deny it.
Yep, it is. It is dominated by men, but that is shifting, and it's shifting, and it's getting better, and the environments are becoming more inclusive, and I feel like voices are being heard, and again, it's one of the great things that I love about where I am at Red Hat, because that is we very much try to create that environment where you can show up as your authentic self and your voice can be heard, and you can use that to push Red Hat forward.
I think men always show up with their authentic self. I don't think they know how not to, because they're allowed to. I mean, they don't worry about putting on makeup at 14, right? They don't worry about getting facelifts at 55, right? They are totally okay with their authentic
they're
self.
worrying about that more and more than you think.
Well, maybe so, but women all
They're just not as vocal about it.
They're not as vocal.
They don't talk amongst themselves like we do,
Maybe
They don't really know that the Botox is going in and Come on, let's face it. It's a thing.
You see
I
that
think-
mascara on there. Will you
well,
look
you
really
do.
closely?
I've seen the makeup closely. I think, well, and there's a lot of painted nails, which I love. I think it's fun. Back to the conversation about job elimination. I think when we're talking about these kids, especially college age, I think the incorporation of the AI is what's going to help, but it's also terrifying to these kids that they hear all this, older folks saying, well, AI is going to take all of our jobs. And then we want to make sure we're encouraging them and saying, no, it's not. It's just going to evolve what they look like. We just have to push that because even my kids, they're in their 20s, early 30s. And, we've had that conversation. Is AI going to eliminate all these jobs of our friends and people we know? And we just keep telling them, no, it's just going to change what they look like. We still need humans.
Yeah. You still need humans and people who understand AI. And again, I have 2 kids in college, and that's something that I'm like, you got to understand digital skills. You need to understand critical thinking. You need to understand the way the human mind works, right? Like, you need to understand these things because these are the important skills that will be necessary in a world going forward that will have AI. It looks different, and you've got to be prepared. And it's not just at college; it has to be lifelong learning. You have to be keeping yourself up on this all the time, and we all do. And you just don't think that your growth opportunity is learning in the job that you have today. It's not. I mean, it is.
Totally. Yeah.
So it's lifelong learning and pushing the boundaries of those skills that will always be needed, and we always need good critical thinking.
So I'm the one who goes off the track here. Before we finish, we've only got a few more minutes. I want to hear about the Elizabeth Nash Foundation.
Oh, thank you so much for asking, Matt. I didn't even see that one. So I mentioned I lost my husband, and he had cystic fibrosis. He ended up passing away of something else, but it's cystic fibrosis. And his sister also had cystic fibrosis and passed away. And after she passed away back in 2003, we started up a nonprofit foundation aimed at improving the lives of people with cystic fibrosis. And we kicked it off originally with scholarships for people based on, a whole variety of things, but people with cystic fibrosis. We invest in research, specific research for it. And most recently, we're taking an additional amount of scope where we've created a fellowship program. And what we're trying to do is there have been so many medical innovations with cystic fibrosis that fortunately, people are living, and they're living longer lives. But what's happening is other things are coming up that they're starting to lose their life to other things, but they're also aging. It's like new aging issues for people with cystic fibrosis that does not look the same as it does in a healthy body. So we've created a fellowship program where we are focusing on addressing the whole person with cystic fibrosis and making sure that as they age, they have the right health care and the right culture within the health care to make sure their needs are being addressed and they can live a long, healthy, and meaningful life.
That's awesome. That's great. Thank you for sharing that.
I appreciate you asking. It's been a labor of love, and I'm really proud of what we've been able to accomplish. And more great things to come.
And because you've been through it, you have the insight that's needed to be able to create a map of what can help people.
Yeah. We're really trying to take a very patient, a person first, right? You can start with the medical, or you can start with the research, or you can start with this, but we're going to try and start with the patient, right? Start with the human being first. It's their experiences that are really driving our work.
And from what you've told us today, I think it defines who you are. I think you're very person-focused. Absolutely.
Thank you. I try to be.
Okay, so before we get cut off, is there a book recommendation that you can give to our audience?
So we have a little book club going on in my team here. And so we just finished up Think Again by Adam Grant for all you Adam Grant fans. It's just such a great book. I mean, we talked a lot about taking risks and thinking differently. And a great book, highly recommended if you haven't read it. The other one by Andrew McAfee is The Geek Way. So that's a really, really good one too. You asked for one, I gave you two.
Oh.
But
Well,
yeah,
I'm gonna give you one for your book club.
you have one?
Yeah, we do. It was a book that I can't remember, one of our guests recommended it, but it's called The Logic of Failure.
Oh, okay.
It is really, really good. It is I read it. I don't remember who gave it to us. Might have been. Was it Carolyn Nash?
No, we always need to remember. We always forget.
She said she read it more than once. And, I just got it on my phone and I read it pretty quickly. And then I was like, I got to read this again because there's so much in it in how the mind thinks and so many good examples of how the logic of failure works. It's a really good one.
But is like based on the acknowledgement that failure isn't a bad thing. It's a good thing. And that, but how you react to
Is it really? No, it's really how we make decisions, how emotion can get involved in making decisions, how we don't follow the logic as far as we need to understand if success is at the end.
Okay. Kind of similar to the Geek Way. Some parallels there about fastest making best you to read the Geek Way. Though I'm gonna read it. I'm gonna download it on Audible and listen to it this afternoon.
Yeah, you'll like it.
This is our question at the end of every interview. So we have quite the book list. I should compile it, Tracy, and write who recommended it for us. But
put a blog out there.
I love it.
Updated.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much. This was just a wonderful, wonderful time. Thank you I know you're super busy and we appreciate you carving out this time to join us. And I know our audience is going to love it. So thank you again for being here. We really appreciate it.
Thank you both. This was a lot of fun. Great conversation. I really appreciate it.
Well, we enjoyed having you. It's really insightful. And everybody remember, stay out of your comfort zone.
Exactly. Thanks everybody for tuning in to another episode of Tech.Strong Women. Stay tuned for lots more great programming on Tech.Strong TV. We'll see you next time. Thanks.